Hi, my name is Jen, and this is part 2 of my Why Gender Matters series. This one is going to go through the chapter on risk. So last video I went through 2 chapters, and this one I'm just going to go through the 1 chapter on risk because it's a really interesting chapter and I think it deserves its own video. So yeah, let's just dive into it. In an introduction I was saying that, and then he usually begins the chapters with an anecdotal story, but in this one he starts off with exploring a ring toss studio. So what he explains is that in the study, you go into a room, there's you and a technician, you know, the technician is the person holding in the study, and then you go into a room and you see that there's a 1-foot pole standing upright on the floor, and you get given 6 rings to throw at this pole, right? And also on the floor you notice that there is markings for 1 foot away from the target, 2 feet away, 5 feet, 15 feet, and so forth. So you ask the technician where you're supposed to stand. And the technician says that you can stand anywhere you'd like, and she also leaves the room so that you get privacy when you toss the ring. What happens here is that the women usually end up standing like most young women will stand 1 or 2 feet away from the target, toss the rings, move on. Most young men, however, will stand 5 or 10 feet away from the target, though doing so greatly increases their risk of missing the target. And at the next part of the study, the door opens and in walks 2 of your classmates of the same sex. So if you're a female, it's 2 girls, and you're a male, there's 2 males. And here's the interesting part. The women in this study typically will do the exact same thing that they did when no one was there. They will stand 1 or 2 feet away from the target, toss the rings, nothing, no difference. However, with the males, it is the males actually, when other young men are watching, most young men will demonstrate what psychologists call a risky shift. If the man tossed the rings from 2 feet away when he was alone, he'll back up to 5 feet when other men are in the room. If he tossed the ring from 5 feet when he was alone, he'll back up to 10 feet when other males are there. And so I think that there is a consensus, or a typical consensus, that we know that men take a higher risk than women do. It's something that is like the one thing that I think that the feminists kind of agree on. I guess it's probably because you can point at the boys and men and be like, he's fucking stupid, you know, because they take risks and die at a much larger rate than women do. Many boys enjoy taking physical risks, and the majority of boys are impressed by other boys taking risks. So there's a difference not only in risk-taking, but also in the way that the genders perceive risk-taking in their own gender. So he brings up, the first example he brings up of this is, imagine you're back in middle school, right? Suppose you heard about a friend who rode a bicycle off of a 12-foot high boardwalk and landed on a sandy beach. Now, if you were a boy who did this, you can go on then with your friends and be like, oh my god, you see what I just did? Oh, that's so crazy, you know? And your friends will like cheer you up. The guys will be like, hey, did you hear what Brett did? Totally, you know. They will be really hyped about that. Now, if it was a lady who did that, like let's say I took a fucking bicycle and did something like that, because I probably would when I was a kid because I was fucking stupid. Outliers, let's say. But anyways, so if a lady would do that, then she will be perceived as weird. And like, you know, why would she do that? You know, like...
she must be totally nuts to do something like that. What a weirdo.
Is what girls might say. Another example, he brings up the point of unprotected sex. So in the first example, it's a high school boy who hooks up with an attractive college girl. Now that would be perceived as respectful, you know, like, holy shit, how'd you do that? And then the other day, he has unprotected sex. So on Friday, he hooks up with a college girl, and then on Saturday, he hooks up with a different girl, you know, has unprotected sex. Now that would be honored by his classmates. They would think that that was pretty cool that he was able to do that. You the man, and, you know, banter like that would ensue. But suppose that the same thing would happen but with a girl. Now that would not be perceived as something good. And here's where the feminists will be like, patriarchy, you know, but I don't know, man. It's just like that. Suppose now that the same thing happened, but with the genders reversed. A 12th grade girl goes to a party Friday night and has unprotected sex with a college man she just met, and then on Saturday night she goes to another party, has unprotected sex with a different man. If her girlfriends find out about her exploits, they are not likely to be favorably impressed. They will see that she's a slut, she's insanely reckless, or both. Girls and boys assess risk differently, he states. This is interesting. A study says that as soon as kids are old enough to toddle across the floor, it is a much higher risk that if you have a boy, he will do stupid shit like put his finger into an electric socket. So if you have a boy, beware. The data on drowning victims shows that 15 to 19 years of age, boys are 9.8 times more likely to drown. In other words, among young people 15 to 24 years of age, boys and young men are about 10 times more likely to die in a drowning accident than girls of the same age. Now, why is that? We can go back to one simple thing, that boys and girls assess risk very differently. So let's say, imagine you're a group of girls walking down the Florida beach. You see a sign that it says, warning, riptide zone, don't swim here, go over there, right? And so you're a stable person, so you're like, all right, I should go over there then. I'm not gonna, take the risk or, ignore the sign. But if you're a group of males, however, there's a good chance that one of the boys will snort and say, riptide, ha, it's just water, I'm stronger than water. He plunges in, and he may be washed to his death. And the Boston University, the psychologists doing the study, concluded that a major contributor to this is that young men probably, they concluded that young men probably overestimate their swimming abilities. And now you can see this in multiple different ways in these studies. Placing themselves in riskier aquatic situation than women. Likewise, epidemiologists at the University of Pittsburgh have found that males are more likely to die of thunderstorms than females are. Many of these deaths occur when a flash flood blocks a road. A female driver encountering a stretch of road underwater is likely to do the sensible thing and just turn the car around and go a different route. Now, however, a male is much more likely to be like, it's just water, I can do this. My car is stable enough, I'm stable enough, I got this shit on lock, and then they, die. Again, it seems that boys systematically overestimate their own abilities and or underestimate risk. So the thing is here that this is not only a human thing, this can be viewed it's been observed in primates such as monkeys, baboons, and chimpanzees. And they've done multiple studies on this, that this is a gender difference that you can see there as well. And here he brings up the talking point that many gender-based inequities persist in our society. Men remain far more likely to be CEOs of major corporations, despite the fact that there is now a substantial cohort of equally well-trained women. Only 26 of Fortune 500 companies are led by female CEOs, a proportion that hasn't changed much in the past 30 years. So what he brings up here, so we have now talked about how we need to be careful of young boys because they are their own biggest enemy in killing themselves by accident because they're such high risk takers. With the women, it is a completely different story. Here he goes into risk training or dare training, and he also, so in relation to this quote about the CEOs, and he also goes into women being paid less on average. And so one example for this is that the women just hadn't asked for the money because it is kind of a risk to ask for a raise or ask for a high salary. Even though you might feel that you deserve that high salary, you are much less likely to ask for it if you are a female. Here he brings up another point about the view that we have on girls being more vulnerable than boys, and this could be an issue actually that is about the constructionist and on the constructionist side of things, because he talks about here how a 14-year-old boy, Jason, injured his back playing football. He could barely walk, and him and his dad comes, you know, into his practitioner's office, and you can tell that the dad is kind of proud of his son, because he's like, yeah, you just plunge in there and, you know, whatever, did some cool stuff like, oh, can you imagine, like, you did this for the team, and then when they did the x-rays, it turns out that, yeah, it was kind of fine, you know, it was something with the whatever. It was fine, and the first question that the dad asks is, when can you get out on the field again? However, when there was a girl coming into his office with a very similar injury. So it's not a fatal or serious injury at all, but they come in and both the parents walk into his office this time, and they are very much concerned. And instead of asking when will she be out on the field again, they ask, should we take her out of the football team? The difference in the parents' reaction is striking. It's so remarkable. I've begun calling parents' attentions to it. If this girl was a boy, they would just, you know, say to him, like they did with the 14-year-old boy, just walk it off, you know, you'll be good. Get back on the field again. So it's a problem. It is a real problem. And so one thing that you can do is, if we know this information there, and he goes into this at more depth, I'm not gonna do that. They are training with girls. So what boys need is vastly different than what girls need. Girls need to do, like, you know, dare training, where you build up their confidence to try new things, to throw themselves into a little bit of risk, you know, because sometimes you have to take risks. Like sometimes you have to ask for that salary, or sometimes you have to, you know, like skateboarding, like, you know, like it's dangerous, but if you land the trick and if you have your helmet on and all of that, it is such an empowering thing to get over risky stuff. And girls need to get the opportunity to get more help with that, which they need. Boys don't need that. And this is why gender matters. Yeah, and so here he goes into a little bit of what you can do for your kids. So with the boys, you need to remember the risky shift that we talked about in the beginning, where boys in groups do stupid things. If you know that your boy is going to do something, let's say a little bit risky, then make sure that there are other adults there. You know that supervised is better than unsupervised, and assert your authority and don't let your boy do stupid things even though he might want to. Instead of just telling your boy, like let's say your boy likes mountain biking and you don't want him to go unsupervised. Now, instead of just saying to him, cannot go, put a huge ass lock on his bike so that he physically cannot go. Because it'll be much easier for him to say, nah, dudes, I can't go. My dad put this stupid lock on my bike, than just, no, my parents said no, you know. Alright, so that was the third chapter. In the next video, we're going to go into... So that was the third chapter. It was on risk. And the next chapter is on aggression. So I don't know, I think I might be posting a video of these a week. I can't promise anything, but you know, they're fun to do. So yeah, I hope you like this video. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up. If you like what I do on this channel, you can subscribe. I also have a Twitter and I have a PayPal if you want to support me there as well. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.